I think is going to be incredibly useful for doing exactly that bit of so what and what's the actual difference we've made here. Natasha is going to tell you all about the SROI model.
Yeah, hi everybody. I absolutely wouldn't agree that. What did you say? I don't know, that you've not been key in the.
Oh, I can't say that much better.
Yeah. No, Andrew's been brilliant. It's been a journey, I'll tell you. But yeah, hi, I am Natasha from Civil Society Consulting. I'm the co-founder, and it's a not-for-profit consultancy. So, as you all know much better than I do, supporting carers has many positive effects in many different directions. For carers, the people that they care for, and also this kind of wider community of stakeholders, partners, and the people you work with. So therefore, though each of you are different, or each of your organisations are different in terms of your size, the geography that you're covering, and the organisational model that you're following, you all share this same challenge of trying to kind of capture what is such a vast, amazing impact, and kind of capturing that in a way that people can understand, and communicating it to funders and commissioners. Or at least this is what I'm told, that this is a challenge that you have. So yeah, Carers Trust commissioned us, Civil Society Consulting, to try and develop a tool that will help. And it is called the Social Return on Investment Calculator. And I'm here with Yasmin, my colleague, to outline just briefly what the calculator does. And in so doing, I hope it will kind of prime you to make the most of it when it lands in your inboxes, hopefully very soon. So briefly, for anyone who doesn't know what social return on investment is, it's the idea that we can measure social value as much or almost as much as we can measure financial value. And this enables us to say things like, for every pound invested in Wandsworth Carers, maybe £5 or £15 of social value is created. And this 1 to 5, 1 to 15 is called your SROI ratio. So like everything, there are pros and cons to SROI. The pros are that it does a really good job of capturing that vastness I've been trying to describe of your impact all in one kind of neat numerical figure. And I noticed on one of Andrew's slides that a lot of people use case studies to capture their impact, which are obviously wicked, do the job really well. I think probably SROI ratios go really well hand in hand with a case study, because storytelling is a really powerful way to get people to understand what's going on, and then you've got this numerical figure. So hand in hand is pretty powerful. And then, yeah, by building off this traditional concept of return on investment, cost effectiveness, SROI hopefully helps funders to see the kind of the value of adding value rather than just kind of the value of cutting costs. So I don't know if that resonates at all. And lastly, it's easy to understand. So you don't need to be an expert on carers' lives and the intricacies of the type of challenges they're up against to be able to see that 5 to 1 or 15 to 1 is like an excellent return on investment. So the cons. Great as SRI is, I think basically it's just, it's a whole thing to do. Calculating it takes a lot of time. And if you're doing an SRI on multiple services, it becomes quite complicated before it becomes simple again. And I speak from experience of developing this calculator. So basically, to do an SRI, it really does need to be like based on the experiences of your beneficiaries and stakeholders around you. So you have to do a big consultation with them, try and figure out which outcomes they experience, to what magnitude and in what numbers. Then you have to map those outcomes. And then you have to find financial proxies for each one, which sort of, it's no small feat. And then there's this whole valuation process, which is quite mathematical. And it is amazing when you do all that, but obviously, given what you're up against as charitable organisations, also busy collecting all the other impact data that you are collecting, it's kind of, tight resources, busy team. The odds aren't stacked in favour of doing an SROI. So basically, Carers Trust and Andrew's team wanted network partners to be able to access all the benefits of SROI without the costs, and that is why they commissioned us to develop this calculator. And you'll be able to plug in basic data. We've made sure that it's not going to be very demanding about your organisation. So, for example, the number of carers you work with in a particular age bracket and your annual income. And the calculator will sort of spit out an estimate of your SROI ratio. So, the calculator will be shared with some very clear instructions. We're going to make sure of that. There's a user manual, but kind of here's a heads up on how to use the calculator. So step one, get your data together. As I mentioned, the calculator will only ask for like very simple data, but it is probably best to get those figures or estimations of those figures together before you sit down with the calculator. Step two, input all this data. So this is a screen grab of kind of our proto calculator. And big disclaimer, we will make this much more beautiful before you're faced with it. But I just wanted to give you a sense of like a structure of the calculator, basically. So this is showing the SRI calculation for peer support groups. And you'll input like the number of peer support groups that you run, roughly even, it doesn't have to be exact, and an estimate of the number of carers in each one, or exact figures if, of course, you've got them. More on that in the manual, I guess. And then step three, so understanding and communicating your SRI ratio. So you'll be able to refer any doubters, anyone who doubts or is skeptical of the calculator, to a methodology report that we're producing. And that's going to set out exactly what we did. But it's probably good, in fact, it's definitely good to understand the concept and the methodology a bit yourselves. So just some tips, really. Trust the manual. We're working to make sure that that really does make sense. Refer back to it when you're in doubt. It is worth taking a quick look at the methodology report too, so it will give you a sense of the process. So obviously you don't need to know the ins and outs. Number two, interact with the calculator. So you don't need to know the ins and outs of the calculation. It's quite mathematical, but maybe have a play on the calculator and you can get a sense of how it works. And I think that would be really important for communicating your SRI value confidently and compellingly. So then, tips for when you're communicating your SRI ratio. I think it will be really, these will be in the manual, but I think it'll be really important to emphasize that there has been a really large, a really decent number of stakeholders and beneficiaries that we've engaged with. And, so it's based on real life experiences and people's expertise. And also be open and upfront about how SRI uses approximations. It isn't intended to be an exact science. On that note, a bit of context on our study. I realise this is maybe the boring bit, so you can come and find me later if you're interested in more detail. But to help you understand the concept and methodology, basically the team at Civil Society Consulting have worked with 12 network partners to identify all the outcomes that a typical carer centre or carer support organisation generates for their carers, their cared for, and this wider community of stakeholders. We interviewed 68 members of staff. We surveyed 316 carers. I don't know if that figure maybe ended up even being a teeny bit higher, but and then we consulted a range of stakeholders, so schools, charities, national and regional, and councils. And I would obviously like to take this moment to say thank you so much to these network partners who participated. I've spotted a few of you. I hope we can meet later. You're the heart and soul of the calculator, and obviously really wouldn't have been possible without you. So thank you so much. And I realise until this point it's not necessarily been like the fun bit, but hopefully as we're coming to pilot it, it will be. So then we mapped all these outcomes. So you might have seen the map of outcomes for carers on the monitor in the social impact booth. And it's also on the next slide. We basically created 3 outcome maps. So it's like, okay, what are all the outcomes for carers? What are all the knock-on effects or direct outcomes for cared for and for stakeholders? And there's 3 different maps. And then we gave each one a financial value and developed into a calculator that hopefully works well for network partners despite your differences. So for anyone who didn't see the map, I noticed it wasn't organised as into these kind of different nodes on the monitor outside, but in a way that's, I think, maybe a good thing because it really does just show the vastness of your impact. But this is what it looks like a bit more organised. And then when you zoom in, it shows you all the outcomes that are spoken for in this calculator. So we just hope this might be an easier way to get a sense of what we're doing, because some of the maths is maybe a bit boring. And lastly, yes, forgive me ending on a bit of a shameless plug for our services, letting you know who kind of we are. So we're like a values-led consultancy. We provide consultancy services to charitable organisations at low cost. So we've worked with a number of carer centres in the past, which is part of why we got the commission. And we work across the whole country. So again, familiar with lots of different contexts. And as I say, we've done a lot of work for carer centres and carers organisations in the past, and we would really love to do more. So if you have any assignments that could be outsourced, please do think of us.